learners. This session is going to be on event logistics. I am Reema Ghoshal and I am an executive producer with Teamwork Arts, one of not just India's but world's leading arts and entertainment companies. And I'm incredibly excited to be sharing my experience with all of you. So today's topic, event logistics. We're going to cover a few things under this: understanding logistics, elements of logistics, and I have a very interesting case study for all of you, which is from the Jaipur Literature Festival. So let's begin. Understanding logistics using the human anatomy. Well, when I was in university, logistics was of course one of the key topics as part of my events and mass communication course. And what we were explained is using the human anatomy. So let's say our event is happening at a hotel in Jaipur, so which is the heart. All the people who are staying in different hotels are the limbs. So how are the people from the limbs reaching the heart? Well, that's through the veins, the arteries, the entire circulation, and that's what logistics is all about. Logistics basically means connecting one item or one component of the festival with the other. Logistics is literally the lifeline of any cultural event. So let's say you've actually organized an event, but how are the people coming to the event? How are your supplies coming to the event? Supplies would include your decor that's coming in, the tenting that's required, or the security cameras that are required. How is the crew coming in? How are, so everything that's at the festival, so once you've picked a venue, how is everything coming in and going out? And all of that is what logistics is all about. Well, the word actually sounds complicated, but it's all about the connections. So these are connecting one part of the event to the other parts. It's connecting people, and the key to logistics is communication. I have divided the idea of logistics into two parts: quantitative and qualitative. The quantitative part of logistics involves supply. So this, like I said, the supply of all of your material. So when you're doing a cultural events, you need a lot of stuff from the design collaterals that are coming in, or all of your tenting, your decor, your food, all of that. A is the supply of the items. The second is the supply of your customers, your audiences. So how are your customers coming to the festival? Where are they parking? If they are parking in a public parking, who's taking care of the security of all of this? So that is what supply, the quantitative part of logistics, is all about. So let's take an example of one of these. An international band toured to India last year, and the concert took place in one of the biggest stadiums in Mumbai. So they created a plan where basically people could park their cars at a particular spot, and then they were shuttled or ferried to the venue. And that's a good example of logistics and supplying your audiences. Transport, trust me, is so important to a cultural event. Transport would include all of your travel, booking your tickets. Are you coming by train? Are you coming by road? And I'm going to cover the part of transport as logistics, including accommodation, as part of my case study. And the third aspect of the quantitative part of logistics is security. We're living in times where there are a number of threats, man-made, natural. There's a lot of, we would like to feel safe. We would like to feel secure when we are going to an event. If we are traveling to that event, if we are traveling to that country for the first time, if we are traveling to that part of the city for the first time. And that's where security also is one of the very key part of logistics. And like I said, logistics has so many things, and it'll be impossible for us to cover everything in one go. But I hope to do a detailed study on security at some point in one of these sessions. Moving to the qualitative part, communication is key. Information networks. What is it that you're communicating? You have to make sure that whatever you're communicating is the same communication that is going out to everybody. There's a chain of action. If you're saying that the apple is red, you have to make sure that person who's at the top till the last vendor knows that the apple is red. I'm going to talk about it when I come to that part. So supply, like I said, customers, how are your customers coming? So accessibility. So from this point comes the idea of accessibility. How accessible is your cultural event? How are you reaching there? Do you have to change metros? How do you know where to come? What is the closest metro station? If you're taking an Uber, if you're taking a cab, can you take, will it be available when you're leaving? Till what time is the event going on? So when you're talking about the logistics of the customers, this is pretty much working around the idea of accessibility. And how do you ensure that a customer who has paid to maybe come to the event, or who has taken time from their busy schedule to come to the festival or your event, and they're easily, if they are parking their car, is there a valet system? If they are paying for parking, is it a reasonable amount that they are paying for parking? If it is a free parking, is it safe and secure for them? So a customer, the only way that a customer can actually experience and engage at an event is only when they're accessible to it. So that's the first part. The products and the facilities. So these are the second part. So when I talk about facilities, this could mean having your portable bathrooms that come in, or any other facility which is around food, or if you need like a DFMD to check the luggage that's coming in, or if you actually need physical security guards, which is a facility that is being provided, or if you need people who are actually doing the registration, who are actually zapping the barcodes, who are actually giving you a badge. These are all facilities that comprise logistics. Products. Products could mean anything from your merchandise. Products could mean, or like I said before, all the stuff that's coming in, your tents, your flowers, your chairs, all of your signages, all of those come under products. So basically, just to sum up the supply part of it, if your heart, which is your venue, does not get the desired blood to pump it, it's just lying there. So basically, that's what I am talking about. Transport and accommodation. Well, like I said, I am incredibly excited to be sharing this case study with all of you. Just a few pointers before we move to the case study is inventory. Inventory basically means knowing what your requirement is. So do you need 500 cars? In those 500 cars, do you need buses? Do you need sedans? Do you need a hatchback? Do you need a minivan? What are the kind of cars that you need, or what are the kind of road transport facilitators, vehicles that you need under inventory? Or if you're doing accommodation, how many rooms do you need? Do you need single rooms? Do you need double rooms? Do you need a suite? Do you need a big, if there's a celebrity coming in, a VIP guest coming in, do you need to block a particular floor? So what is that requirement, the inventory that you have? So you give an inventory, let's say you need 500 cars, you need 1000 rooms, and then you move from there. So within this is where you kind of play around with. The second part is budgeting. So these two aspects are kind of correlated. When you're doing budgeting, it could actually be that you have an X budget and you kind of figure out the inventory within that budget. Or alternatively, what you could do is you could work out your inventory and then work the budget around it. So let's say if your budget does not allow you 5 cars, you could actually use the 3 cars and make them shuttle a couple of times. Or let's say if you do not have enough room nights, you can actually look at alternative hotels or other properties. So these two are correlated. Planning. This is where the key part comes in, that now that you've got your inventory, you've blocked your budget, how are you planning it? How are you allocating your cars? How are you allocating your rooms? Let's say there's somebody who needs, who's not comfortable climbing stairs. So you have to make sure that you're planning to give them a room which is on the ground floor, or in an accommodation which probably has an elevator for them, or special access which will give them special access to their particular floor. Or for example, if somebody has some sort of a sickness, they have motion sickness, so maybe not put them in a car, but you make sure that they come by train. But train could also lead to motion sickness, or maybe have them come on a flight, or maybe kind of break their journey. If they're traveling for a distance, you kind of break their journey and make sure that they travel accordingly. Training. So because transport and logistics is one of the biggest departments, one of the most important, training your staff, training your crew is very, very crucial. How logistics is also, especially the transport and accommodation part, is also a lot about client servicing. So it's very important to train your team, to manage situations, to manage prices, to know how to talk to your clientele. Execution. Like I said, now that you're done with your inventory, budgeting, planning, you've trained your team, how are you actually executing it? How are you making sure? Are you calling the drivers? Are you calling the hotel? Has the hotel kept the rooms ready? Is the execution part of it. Crisis management, like I said, nothing on this earth is foolproof. There will be a crisis, a flight could be delayed, a hotel room could be not prepared in time, somebody could have fallen sick. So always be ready for crisis management. And last is feedback. All events, all things in life are continuously work in progress. I think I've said this before. Nothing can be planned for future, nothing can be improved unless you take feedback. We have to really check with the people who we are working with. Did they like the car that they were in? Was it smelling nice? Was their travel time convenient to them? Was it comfortable to them? All of these things need to be factored in. So this was the quantitative part of logistics that we were talking about. Moving to the qualitative part, before I move to the case study, information network. Communication is key. More than often what happens is that there isn't a clear chain of communication. So like I said, if I say the apple is red, eventually the communication that's probably going out to the last vendor is, I need 20 apples. Nobody said if I need 20 red apples or if apple is red. So the most important thing is that you have to have a line of command and you have to have a hierarchy. You need to know that if it is a crisis about programming, who is the person disseminating that information? If there is a crisis about transport or a security concern, how is that information being disseminated? Because more than often there's a lot of Chinese whispers where I've said something and incorrect information goes out to somebody, there's rumor spreading, there's panic, and because communication is key, we have to make sure that as part of logistics, we have those clearly set. Evacuation and emergency plans. So, like I said, we're living in times where we want to feel secure, we want to feel safe when we are going somewhere. However, there are a number of things, there are natural causes, there are man-made causes, and every cultural event, may it be a party that you're throwing in a hotel or may it be a wedding that you're doing, there has to be an evacuation and emergency plan. What if it rains? What are you going to do if it's an outdoor event? What if you do not get a particular permission on time? What if there is somebody who's making you uncomfortable at a venue? So what are the evacuation and emergency plans? Are very key and important part of the information network. There's a thing called idiot proofing or making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So what happens is, like, you've planned everything and you've done your inventory, your planning, your training, but suddenly you were supposed to have 10 volunteers. One volunteer has backed out and there's a new person who does not know that who's the driver that's going to a particular venue or what is the next session all about. And that's where you've planned everything and you've done your planning, inventory, everything, and things fall through cracks. So we have to make sure that if there is a new person coming joining the team or there's an addition, there's a change, that is being clearly communicated, and everybody from the director of the festival or the curator of that particular cultural event to the vendor who's probably providing you chairs knows the basic details about that particular event. Working on alternative plans in crisis management, like I said, important to have plans. Like if you are doing a festival or a cultural event where there's something else supposed to happen, or you know that the previous event that was at that venue took longer to dismantle, all of us have to have an alternative plan. Uniformity in communication, and last but not the least, avoid rumors and panic. There's nothing worse at a cultural event than actually spreading rumors that, hey, you know what happened? Well, it may be true, it may be not. Always make sure that you verify the information from the right authorities. Some images from some of the lit fests that we've done in India and abroad. You can see the decor, you can see the speakers, and trust me, this is the heart. And to bring everything together, to make sure that the decor looks like it's looking right now, there's been a lot of logistics, a lot of planning, a lot of communication that has gone into it. And here we are at the exciting part of the case study. So we're going to do a logistics, transport and accommodation case study from the Jaipur Literature Festival. So like I said, transport is considered the lifeline of any event. It is the mode by which people, including your guests, speakers, general public, and most importantly your crew, reach the actual spot. So, like I said, like when you're doing a cultural event, there are so many people making sure that the event's happening. There are your people who are recording the videos, photographers, your actual crew, your programming team, your curators, the guests who are performing, the artists who are performing, the musicians, your audience members, your delegates, and everybody has to be directed on how to reach the venue. And that is where the logistics and accommodation come into place. The Jaipur Literature Festival on an average does the accommodation and logistics of over 1500 people. Like I said, which does include the crew, the guests, the journalists, the press, the media, the general public, everybody else. And that's not an easy task. Over 5 days of the actual festival and a planning that goes on for more than 3 months. So the pre-festival, let's start the pre-festival and I'll also talk about examples. So Jaipur in January is a popular hub for weddings, especially with the trend of having a wedding which is not in the same city, having a wedding which is out, in an exotic location like Jaipur or in a palace. That's the hub in January. So what happens is that we have to start by blocking our inventory. So we have to make sure that the dates that the festival is on for and the dates before and after, because the crew or a lot of the directors and speakers, they do not really come in on the actual days. They have come there like 10 days in advance. So basically, you have to kind of dodge your way around these destination weddings and make sure that you've got the dates that you've wanted for. You've got the right type, the right amount of rooms, you've got the right amount of cars. So that's the first part when we are planning it pre-festival. It's also a lot about putting this information out on your website so that the general audience can purchase the hotels if they want to, or if they want to see what are the options in Jaipur, or if they want to book their cabs, because like I said, the Jaipur Literature Festival is an international festival happening in Jaipur, Rajasthan, India. So we have a lot of guests who come in from America, who come in from Europe, who probably coming in from other parts of Asia, Australia, and people who've not been to the city before. So for them, the website which allows you to book a hotel, book your cab, is their one-stop solution for everything. The second part is planning. You've now planned, you've finally blocked your inventory, you've planned it, you've budgeted it. The next part is the allocation. So there are people who would probably, if somebody is going to Jaipur, there's this whole thing about living in actually a palace. So you have to allocate the people as per the requirement. If it's a 5-star hotel, 4-star hotel, are they coming in as a big family? Do they need a bigger car? Are they going to be comfortable in a sedan? Will they need something which is more spacious if they have more luggage? So all of these parts are the initial part of the pre-festival. Arrivals. So once the festival is about to begin and we've done all of our planning and budgeting and allocation, the key thing is the arrivals. So people in Jaipur usually come by 3 means, which is your air. Of course, if they're taking flights from wherever they're coming by train, and they're coming by road. So our entire planning has to be around this. So what we do is we do set up a desk at the airport, because that's the place where a major chunk of our guests, who are actually the speakers, musicians and the delegates, are coming from. So we have a desk that makes sure that they have a sheet, all the flights are demarcated, they are marked, and there's somebody to greet and take them to their required cars. From there they're taken to their hotels. So that's the arrival part. Same at the railway station. So the railway stations are a little different from the airports where you can actually place a desk. So what happens is you actually put a desk, or you kind of tell the person that this is where you're supposed to come and meet me. So that's how. And of course car, then it's the easiest form of travel, where from one destination to the other, it's a door-to-door service that you have, and that's what the arrivals are all about. Like I said, edict proofing. No question is ever irrelevant. It's important to ask the slightest question. You may not know your whereabouts within Jaipur, or you may not know where the person is being picked up from. So keep asking questions. We have to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So during the festival, so like I said, it's a 5-day festival. There are thousands of people coming to the festival. There are a lot of people who have actually booked their accommodation, travel, transport via us. So because coming back to the fact where logistics is key. Now you are at your venue, you've organized your venue, it's looking great, it's looking stunning, the stage is great, the sound system is great. Now if your logistics of travel and transport fail, how is your speaker actually coming to the venue? Let's say the speakers come to Jaipur. How are they coming to the venue on time? All of that is the part of execution. So you've planned everything, like I said, your festival grounds are looking great, the audiences are there. The part of logistics is to make sure that your speakers, your delegates, your artists, everybody is reaching there on time. Even if we're talking about the parking, like a person who's an audience member has reached the venue on time, there's enough time for him or her to park, go into the venue. But if the parking's not ready, if they don't know where to park, so all of this come under the execution of transport and logistics on ground. Crisis management. I'm going to talk about a few of the possible crises that can happen and what to prepare for in my next slide. Client and guest servicing. Well, the key is smile. Always smile. You may not have the solution to all the problems. You may not know where the driver has disappeared, or you may not know how many people have actually parked, but smile. Assure people that you're listening to them. Listening, smiling, communication. Tell them that you're going to get back to them. And that's, like I said, qualitatively a key part of logistics is communication. So if you make sure that whoever you're communicating with is assured that you've heard their grievance, you've heard their issue, you've heard their concern, and eventually you will get back to them within a particular time frame. It can't be where you kind of say, I'll get back to you and then not get back to them in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, in an hour. So these are during the festival. When you're doing long festivals, when a festival goes beyond 3 days, there's a lot of fatigue, there's a lot of tiredness, the things are in a routine, they're repetitive. But what has to keep on going is for you to think that there is something new, there's going to be a new experience every day, even if it's within the routine. Even if your task is simply to greet a person at the gate, trust me, you will end up meeting somebody new every single time. There'll be a new experience. Post the festival, departures, very important. So while the people have successfully reached the festival, successfully reached your event, it is very important to make sure that they get back home safely. So with the same assurance that you've got them to the festival, with the same diligence, with the same passion, you have to make sure that they get back to where they've come from. The festival being in Jaipur, a lot of people do extend their trips. They usually go to an Agra or an Udaipur or Jaisalmer, or some people who've internationally traveled may do a tour in India. But still, the task at the festival is for us to ensure that they have checked out of the hotel and they have left the city of Jaipur as per our promise, as per our commitment to them. The last part, feedback. Like I said, and I've reiterated multiple times, all the processes from anything that you do in life, may it be education, may it be actually planning for a festival, may it be buying a vehicle. The only reason we keep upgrading our vehicles or upgrading our phones is because we've given a feedback, we've realized what works and what does not work, and we are offered an improved version. So it's important that we get the feedback, what worked, what did not work, did the cars reach on time, did the cars did not reach on time, were the drivers cordial, were we greeted properly, and that's part of the feedback. Usually this is done through a feedback form. With tools like Google or MailChimp, you can actually create a feedback form online and share it with your database and then collate the answers that they share with you. Well, this is just me listing down some of the possible crises, because over the last, I've been at the Jaipur Literature Festival for over 10 years now, and these are just some of the possible crises and just how do we usually get out of it. And to begin with, calm and not panic. That's the most important part, because as organizers of a festival, as a cultural event, if you're the first people to panic, then it's going to resonate. It's going to be a domino effect on everybody that you're working with. So force majeure, which is the fury of nature. So in the past, there have been times when it has rained in the at the festival in Jaipur. We've had to shut down a few outdoor venues. We've had to move the venues inside. So this is something that you cannot have much control on. The second are the local strikes and political unrest. A number of times these are very basic. You have an election coming up, you have like a strike, a union strike, a cab strike. There's nothing much you can do about it, but yeah, if you're aware of the dates, you can plan for alternatives. Health and well-being, like I said, you do not have control over somebody who's probably falling sick or somebody who's unable to catch a flight. You've missed a flight, you've been unwell, you've had a health issue. You can't really do much about it. Quality control. So when you're doing a cultural festival, there are a lot of ethos, there are a lot of principles that go into it, and it's important that those are disseminated to everybody who's working on it. So from the organizer to the volunteer to the driver to the front desk of a hotel to the person who's actually serving you food. So that quality control could be possible, that somebody may not have been as cordial as you expected them to be. But like I said, these are the possible crises, and the only way out is to keep looking into the things that can fall into the cracks, plan A, plan B, and go for plan C as well. Man-made disasters, we all know if there's a fire, or if there's an anti-social element, or there's something that you can't really avoid, that's when the security comes into the place, a key part of logistics, which, like I said, I'm going to cover in one of the other segments. Last but not the least, fatigue and human error. Like I said, 5 days on your feet is a really long time for all of us, and there's always a possibility of oversleeping, forgetting to charge your phone, or just being irritable after a point, or not having the will to smile or answer questions. But like I said, even if life is in a routine, there's always something that's out of the box. There's always somebody new that you're going to meet. There's always some new experience that you're going to have. Well, that was a quick case study on the Jaipur Literature Festival logistics. There are so many more elements, and there are so many more things that we can talk about, and I hope we will eventually talk about. Well, here's a small task for you. I would love you all to pick up one element of logistics. It could be communication, it could be an emergency plan, it could be creating an accommodation inventory or a travel inventory, and work around it. You could pick an existing festival, a cultural event, it could be a concert, and make sure that you put all your pointers together. You plan, you budget, you do the inventory, you create an execution plan and share it with us. It's going to be exciting, and trust me, event management is no longer just programming or just bringing artists on board. Logistics has become a very important part of this sector. There are organizations which are just logistics solutions, so which take care of just your travel, just your transport, accommodation, or even security. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you so much.